Will you consider this? This central Illinois area is full of wonderful history and legacies for that matter, and my guest today, Mr. Dick Oakford, has the story of the legacy of your grandfather, Aaron S. Oakford. Welcome, Mr.
Thank
Oakford.
you.
We hear the name Oakford quite a bit, so let's start out with your grandfather was born in a log cabin.
Yes.
Okay, in Limestone.
Limestone County. It was a log cabin that is now still standing. It's been moved to a farm near the airport, and it's been sited, but the logs are still there, so it never gets cold or hot inside. It's still a log cabin inside.
Really? And he was one of how many children?
He had three other sisters that never married.
Okay.
Right.
So Aaron S. Oakford. So he was born in Limestone, and I guess, is it where the Air Guard facility is right now, or that's where the property was back then?
I'm not sure exactly.
And what year was that?
Well, he was born in 1845.
All right. Wow. So pre-Civil War.
Yeah.
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 Wow. And then his family moved to Peoria, which was, I guess, kind of a long distance from Limestone into Peoria back in those days.
Yes, he was 7 years old, and his father had he ran a grocery store, retail grocery store on Washington Street. And he used to stand on the steps of that store and watch Abraham Lincoln campaign for his election.
Wow.
So that was kind of exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So then your grandfather, so he got to witness the grocery business, and then when he was a young man, he only had 1 year of school, 1 year of high school.
He attended Greeley School. He was the oldest graduate of Greeley's grade school, and he had 1 year at Peoria High School. He started the tradition of 5 generations of Oakfords that have attended Peoria High School. He went 1 year and he had to get out and go to work at H.H. Potter Retail Grocery Store, which at that time was the largest grocery store on Washington Street. And he did everything, broke up chunks of Domino sugar and delivered groceries in the horse and wagon, and just all of the operation of a retail store. And until H.H. Potter wanted to retire, that's where he worked. And then when he retired, Potter retired, he bought the company, bought the store with another clerk there. That the two of them, Wright. His name was Wright, and.
So it was Wright and Oakford at that time? At
that point in time. And then eventually in 1868, and that was in 1868 when he bought the store, and in about 1870 they were involved with the wholesale end of it, out of that retail store. So that grew and grew, and they stopped the retail business, and he started the wholesale business totally 100%. And he moved about 3 more times before the present building that still stands, which is the Maxim building on Washington Street.
Okay.
Next to the museum. And so they serviced 460 stores. And
in the 1800s they did that.
Yeah,
Just
late
imagine.
1800s.
Imagine that. Wow.
A lot of retail grocery stores. The early 1900s too, as well, and had a revenue of $1,500,000 a year.
Who knows what that would be today?
Today.
Okay.
So it was a lot at that point in time.
It really was. So then he was quite a benevolent person. He really, yes, he was doing well, but he was also reaching out, and he noticed things. And people, I read the book, it seems that people really listened to what he had to say and how he weighed in. So
They did.
explain, what was the first thing that he reached out to the community to do, to help out?
Golly, the first thing? Well, he was a Congregationalist, and he convinced his church to help him support a mission house. And he did that. He got a mission house, and that little house used to be a tavern, but it became a mission house and eventually the neighborhood house.
Wow. So he was the founder of
He was the founder
House.
of Neighborhood House and the president. And there were 4 generations of Oakfords on that board for over 125 years. And Judy Oakford, my brother Art's wife, was the last Oakford that was on that board. My son was president at one time, Paul. But he was president, and he paid all the bills and expenses just to keep it, make sure it was kept in financial good sound financially. And he, his wife, then his second wife.
Right, and explain the story why he had a second wife. The first one died.
His first wife died very young. So this was a niece of the first wife and a flower girl in the
their wedding, right?
of the first wife.
Okay.
So, my aunt always, she said she figured out that he was his own grandpa, and I'm not sure how he did that.
We'll have to draw that one out
Yeah.
and see how that works out. Yeah.
But so his second wife, Mary Lyons Oakford, did all the operations of Neighborhood House. That was her pet project. She was very active in the community as well. But they even wanted her on the board, but he said no. She said no. One Oakford is enough. But she did bring the first playground area to the Neighborhood House, and so Neighborhood House has been going for 128 years probably now.
Right.
And it's been December 8th, our mayor, Rita, proclaimed it Neighborhood House Day. So he did a lot of reaching out to other people. He was very sensitive to the needs of other people.
Well, and he had his finger in a lot of different things. Banking. He also was helped start up a bank in town.
Yes, he did, with Ferd Luthi and William White. He was the first vice president. And he became, because of the banking business, John Proctor was asked him to be his trustee and the president of the Benevolent Fund.
And Proctor, as in there's
John Cleveland Proctor of
Right.
Proctor Hospital. They built that from Cottage Hospital. And that is where I was born, in the old Proctor Hospital.
and that was kind of on the south side,
Yeah,
wasn't it? Right.
yeah.
And then Proctor Center.
That was built after Proctor died, the recreational center. But the retirement home was down there on Spring Street,
Right.
which is now St. Augustine
Right.
Manor. And he liked that so much that that's where he went to live, and that's where he died.
Where John C. Proctor
John Proctor died.
And how did he make all his money? I forget. I read that, but I forget.
He was a farmer. He had many farms in the state of Illinois. He developed a lumber company, and he had some other interest. He didn't have any family except for one brother. So he left all his money to the Benevolent Fund that my grandfather
Was managing. Right. Right.
So they built a lot of things. They built a school for nursing education, and my grandfather gave the first commencement speech there. So
And he had some pretty interesting information in that commencement speech. Do you remember it, or do we need to look it up?
Yeah, I'm sure if that's the one, or you're thinking of the commencement speech that he gave to Lincoln Grade School.
Oh, it might have been the Lincoln Grade School, yeah.
After, because he talked about Peoria High School, and he mentioned in his commencement speech that he attended Peoria High School in the basement of the Methodist Episcopal Church, where he could sit and watch the mice and the rats scatter around on the plank floors. And he told the Lincoln School kids that it wasn't a nice school with all the nice auditorium and the ball fields like Central has now and Manual has now, but they had brainy teachers.
There you go.
And he learned a lot, and it was a major impact on his life that 1 year in high school. And he made the comment several times, I think, throughout his life that maybe he had too much sense, or maybe he didn't have enough sense to register a kick. So we all know that he had a lot of sense because he accomplished a great deal.
Because he did so well, yeah.
In the community. And he is to be distinguished as the Peoria High School outstanding alumni.
Excuse me. Ooh, that came from nowhere. Okay, excuse me. I don't want to take that honor away from him. No, as a distinguished
distinguished alumni of Peoria High School, yeah.
Wow.
And that'll take place on October 12th.
All right. Well, that's quite an honor. So, so your dad was one of his sons.
That's right.
Okay.
He was the son of the second marriage.
Okay.
So he's a half brother of Wilson Oakford and Edwin Oakford and Seawright Oakford and my Aunt Elizabeth.
All right. And so your dad, I mean, it's pretty overwhelming to try to live up to somebody like your grandfather. So, and I said to you earlier, so with a name like Oakford and being in this community for so long, you really couldn't mess up anywhere along the line, could you? A lot was expected of you.
That's for sure. But it didn't work.
Oh, no, it didn't.
No, he did do an awful lot. People seemed to come to him when they had a problem and they needed a solution. And he took it on 100%, wrapped himself into it, and he came up with a solution. And all the print that I've read and researched, that he never did this for his glory. It was always because that's what he thought a good citizen should do.
Right, and he lived up to that. So then when he turned 80 years old, when he was 80 years old, there was a big birthday party for him. Was it a surprise?
It was a surprise birthday party that 250 citizens came to that.
Uh-huh.
And Bonchus was the organizer of that.
Okay.
At that time, he was in the real estate business.
And that was at the Peoria Country Club.
Peoria Country Club.
Did he help found the country club too?
He was an early member.
Okay.
He founded. He was a founding member of the Creve Coeur Club.
Okay. All right.
But it was interesting that they asked for $3.50 for the meal, as well as for the gift. For the
birthday present.
For the birthday party.
Okay. So, all right.
Which now would be what?
A lot more. A lot more. Okay. Yeah. Inflation. But they named him Peoria's most useful citizen.
Yes.
And they just came up with that moniker for him?
Well, I'm not sure where it originated, but he was named several things. Most useful citizen, Peoria's first citizen.
The grand old man.
The grand old man.
When he was younger, he was the sugar kid or something.
He was the king of sugar.
Okay.
Domino Sugar named him that because he sold so much sugar of their sugar. And he also was the most air-minded citizen. When in 1926, I believe, that the airplanes started to be built, they took him up in a plane over Peoria, and they took and up near Chicago area. They flew him over there, and he was very much concerned about the infrastructure that in the economy. He felt that was the strongest point that kept a strong economy going, and that was rail and water, and highway and air. He had the first barge load of Florida grapefruit come all the way from Florida.
When he was wholesaling? When he was in the wholesale business? All right. Wow.
And so he really was concerned about the infrastructure as the foundation of a good, strong economy in Peoria.
So what do you think he'd think of the world today? Or
I don't know. I don't. You know, I think that he would say to me, Richard, and he'd say to all people, only you can decide what to do next.
Well, and that you did mention that when people did come to him, he'd give them suggestions and ideas, but he would never decide for them.
He was written up as a good mentor for young people to, if they wanted to get ahead. Yeah.
So who's around Central Illinois left today who's kind of like your grandfather?
Well, Rutherford, I think we could fit kind of in that category.
All right.
As a benevolent person.
And there's a lot who've done a lot of good around here.
That's right.
But they don't have the Oakford name to live up to.
No.
And you did tell me, so you did a lot of research and newspaper articles and things like that, but you also got some help from some of your neighbors at Lutheran Hillside Village.
That's right.
What were they telling you?
5 of the people that I've acknowledged in there live at Lutheran Hillside Village. So I consider it a Hillside Village book.
There you go. Okay. And did one of them work at? No, one of them worked at the store, or was a nanny?
One of the residents. His mother worked at the Oakford Company, and his grandfather worked at the Oakford Company.
Okay.
And then there's another one that lives up in Evanston, Illinois. That she's the one that the great-grandfather took care of the horses for the Oakford and Fanistock Company.
Okay.
And she and there's a little picture of
there is a picture
horse
in here.
and the child, and that family lived above the garage of Oakford and Fanistock.
Where they kept the horses.
Where they kept the horses.
Okay.
And he liked horses so much that even after automobiles came into existence, he still stuck with the horses.
He did?
Yeah.
For how much longer, though?
Until he died. He never bought a car.
Really?
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Okay, so then I see that you also had some blue ribbon baking chocolate.
Yep,
so
that was the one that his mother worked at Oakford Company, and he happened to have that label, and he gave that to me.
Wow. What fun. So were there any surprises that you found out about your grandfather that you hadn't heard through word of mouth history?
Well, you know, a lot of it was a surprise. Growing up, I don't remember my father talking about his father. I don't remember my uncles or my aunt talking about my father. So, and I think that goes back to my grandfather, never talked about himself.
Okay.
So I guess I can understand that. But after researching and doing some reading and telling other people, they all said, you need to write this down for your kids and grandkids.
And that's how it came about.
Yeah.
But then how did the publishing come about?
Well,
I mean, I see all these little notes, so this is how you started writing the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but then you actually got it published, and this is the second version of it.
I have a good friend, Merv Rennick, that's acknowledged in there that he acted as my publisher.
All right.
And he's written several books himself, so he did that. And so they all were very kind in helping me out.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's important to record this kind of history because it does get lost. And what do you hope will be the most important thing? Yes, your family knows about it, and now we know about it. But what do you think is the most important thing that will come out of this, that we hang on to history and build from this?
Well, that too, but I think mostly it's the character that Aaron Samuel Oakford was. A very Christian man, and I think that's what I think I like to remember him as.
Okay, yeah.
You know, in the Bible, Jesus says, feed the hungry. And he did that with Neighborhood House. Mm-hmm. And he says, heal the sick. He did that with the Proctor Hospital and building the school for nurses. So it's that feeling and that character that I think is what I like to think about.
Well, and then if someone who was born in a log cabin in 2 centuries ago and came up and could make that much of a difference, kind of like a Mother Teresa, one person can do that many things. Yeah.
Yeah. He did enjoy beauty. We didn't touch on that, where he worked on a committee in the Peoria Heights Development Committee, and they were responsible to build Grandview Drive.
Oh, okay.
So I think that was a surprise to me, because I didn't know that.
All right.
Even though he bought 18 acres, 18 acres on the drive where I grew up.
Mm-hmm. Your dad built a house on that property.
Yeah, because he died before he could get to a building on there. Mm-hmm. But that and Springdale Cemetery, he had a hand in that, and Cedar Street Bridge and the YWCA.
So pretty much everywhere we look around Peoria, Aaron Samuel Oakford had already weighed in and helped make it even what it is today.
United Way, he started and was treasurer of that.
Okay, just amazing.
And the bank is now PNC Bank.
Okay, well, there you go.
So there's a lot of things that we still have.
A lot of legacy. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, your love of your grandfather, who you didn't even really get to know, but
That's
very
right.
interesting. And now more people around Central Illinois can appreciate what they see and what he did for us.
Well, thank you, Christine. This was fun.
Thanks so much, Dick. Dick Oakford, quite a family story. Thanks for joining us, and remember, be well. Next time on Consider This, it's a family affair with Dick Oakford.
People seemed to come to him when they had a problem or they needed a solution. And he took it on 100%. He was written up as a good mentor for young people if they wanted to get ahead.